So last time I left you on a little bit of a hanger. Mr. Big coming back from Paris, engaged to another woman. 5 months earlier, telling Carrie that, he cannot commit because old habits die hard. But before getting into that, people, you do know that we need to go through everything that Carrie experienced before Mr. Big came back. There are some nuggets in there that can be quite useful. Carrie is single again, and it is time to freshen up some things. Some change their hair color, others like to do a deep clean of the apartment. It's that feeling of starting fresh. Carrie also feels very sorry for Mr. Big.
I feel sorry for Big. I was the best thing that ever happened to him. I was it. I was this magic moment. I was the abracadabra. I was totally the poof.
That's all what Carrie talks about when she's with her friends. He's the one who lost. Now, maybe a little bit of an unpopular opinion. You might feel a little bit hurt by me saying that, but here we go. It's not his loss. I think it's just an illusion to get us through things. Here's the thing. Every time we put ourselves in a position, it's their loss, I know it feels good because it feels like a win, right? Very I'm a queen type moment. There is an underlying mindset that can F us up down the road. You see, what you're actually believing is that you two are a perfect match. The problem is that the other person doesn't get it. The other person is not ready to get it. The other person will see how hurtful it is to be without me. Damn, that was a rhyme. I have so many talents. Which creates a perfect opportunity for that person to come back and maybe say they're sorry, they realize how good you were and, they should never treat you that way. And without any real change or without any real agreement, what is, supposed to change, what are we expecting, and so on, you are back in the same situation. Now, just to be clear, totally normal that that's a coping mechanism, maybe at the beginning of the breakup, and, Carrie is in that phase. But I wanted to add that just in case that's a phase that you never go out, okay? Maybe say, I'm so much better and he's gonna regret this, but then kind of realize that no, you were not really perfect for the other person if it didn't work out. Neither were they perfect for you. If it would be, then both of you would find a way how to actually feel good in the relationship. So we see Carrie going day in, day out, bashing Mr. Big to her friends, talking how sad she feels for him. And at the end of the day, she deserves so much better. She deserves someone who can actually be with her, who can understand how good she is.
Someone who deserves me and not some screwed up, insecure guy who can't deal with a woman who's got her act together. Now, I'm going to end up deliriously happy and Big is going to die old and alone, and I pity him. Really, I pity him.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Her way of getting over Big or accepting this loss, let's say, is to bash him, to see him as something bad. So it makes her feel more secure and more in control that at the end of the day, she didn't lose anything. Because to accept that she lost someone is too hurtful, especially knowing that Carrie was afraid to lose this relationship. And it gets me thinking, why are we so afraid to admit that it hurts when we lose something or someone? It might not be good, but at the end of the day, you still lost someone. You still lost that interaction, that connection, whatever made you feel good in special moments. It almost feels like Carrie is in a state where she cannot accept that. She cannot accept that she actually lost him, right? Also, at the end of the day, if she would understand the compatibility, importance of both people in it, blah, 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 I've said it so many times, she wouldn't feel like actually losing, as in, oh my God, I lost this, I don't know, my soulmate and the one. Because I think that's the loss that it's difficult to accept. But if you understand that, sometimes things don't work out and that's okay, but you still acknowledge, yeah, but it still sucks that I'm losing this person. I think the getting over part is a bit more efficient and has a little bit better foundation from where you can then, develop, learn, and so on. And here's the thing. We both know he's an asshole. This relationship should have ended. I'm just analyzing or giving this commentary from the point of view what will actually help you understand the breakup and move on and do better for yourself in the future. And honestly, the way Carrie is doing is not the best. Also, like I said, maybe just initial stages of a breakup. Okay, there are phases. We go through everything. Now, her friends reach their limit. They're like, Biz, you've been talking about this guy and about this breakup for way too long. We're friends. We're here for you. It's all understandable, but everyone has their limit. And maybe you should go to a therapist. Now, going to a therapist for Carrie is a little bit like,
To be honest, I just don't buy the whole shrink thing.
We have different people, right? Some believe in therapy, some don't. The more we educate ourselves, the more we know that it's actually helpful. But connecting it to the fear of loss and blah, 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 I wonder if there is also a part of Carrie that doesn't feel she needs to go to therapy because at the end of the day, she's not the one that effed up. He has problems with commitment. So why am I going to the therapy? Nevertheless, with some persuasion from friends and understanding that maybe she is still too caught up in even thinking about big, she does go to therapy. We see her being a little bit uncomfortable, expressing that she doesn't really believe in these things, but here we are. Let's see what you can do to help me. In this session, Carrie is basically describing who Big is and what went down or what is the problem. So he's a very hot and successful guy, and she got involved with him, but he wasn't really emotionally available or ready to commit. All in all, it's giving very much, I'm the victim who got involved with a bad guy. And look, I'm the first one to say that we need to call shit out when we need to call shit out. Mr. Big did many things that were shitty, and we should call that out, okay? But again, saying that, in my personal opinion, if you actually want to understand what went wrong in the relationship, you need to look at the selfish part of you that was driving it. I've talked about this in some other videos I've made, but basically, I learned, and I kind of, maybe I'm wrong, but in a lot of cases, there is a selfish part of us that it's actually keeping us stay with the other person. The selfish part can be, I don't want to be alone, right? As much as we want to see it as, oh my God, that's such a childhood wound and blah, blah, blah. And all of that can be true. But on the other side, there is an ego attached to it that wants to make sure that you are not alone because you are not supposed to be alone. So you're doing everything to satisfy that selfish part of you, that it doesn't matter what's happening on the other side as long as I'm not alone. The selfish part can be the identity that you attached with being in a relationship. That was my case, for example. At least that's how I understood it. If I have the status of being in a relationship, that makes me a better person. That makes me someone who is loyal, who is a good girl. So I also didn't want to let go of that person. I also always try to find a solution, even maybe convince the other person that we can work on it, right? Or I will just, dim myself a little bit more as long as we can keep this image. Now, when you accept that there is a selfish part that is driving you, when you say, yeah, maybe have a little bit of problem, that's when you're actually starting to heal yourself, to understand what are your patterns in a relationship and why do you pick the wrong man, or why do you stay when you shouldn't stay? Because next time that will happen, you will ask yourself, why am I actually doing this? And if the selfish part comes out and says, hey, girly, I'm here, then you need to sit down, do some journaling, and reevaluate. Now, the therapist actually calls her out a little bit and implies her own involvement in who she is choosing.
Yeah. Maybe I've dated men who were wrong for me, but who hasn't?
But the thing they have in common is you.
What's your point?
Maybe you're picking the wrong men.
Now, Carrie is a little bit put back. She's like, Bess, I didn't choose. Guys find me.
I do not pick the wrong guys. They pick me.
And I was intrigued. I wanted to understand a little bit better. Why would Carrie feel better if she can say that guys pick her rather than who she chooses? Now, first of all, the obvious thing is, well, because then she doesn't have any responsibility, right? If I say I chose the wrong guy, it implies that I have to work on something. But if I say that they pick me, then there is no real accountability because, I'm just a girl that's walking down the street and then an evil guy comes and boo-hoo. Falling for bad guys can be looked at two different perspectives, right? If you look at it that it's your actions that are doing that, then you actually do some retrospection. But if you're looking at it as I'm just unlucky, then you're not going to take any action to change that. You will just hope that the right one will one day also bump into you. But then there is another thing, and it is again connected with how she sees herself. You see, if guys pick me, okay, it means that I am this perfect, the best woman, and guys are just drawn to me. I don't need to pick guys. I don't need to search for a guy. I don't need to put any effort in it because at the end of the day, I'm that good that guys just come to me. It's again giving this, I'm the special person and the Prince Charming is just gonna find me. I don't need to do anything. The universe and everything will just work in my way. So Carrie mentions that Big is playing games. And the therapist asks if she's the one who's playing games.
Frankly, I think I picked the wrong therapist. I mean, she just did not get me at all. She thought I was a game player.
Now, they don't really get into it, but what comes to mind being with Carrie on this whole journey is the game of constantly trying to feel good enough despite giving the illusion that you're confident, right? Instead of talking with Big about things that are bothering you and not letting it just disappear into the thin air, she rather pretends that she's okay with it, right? Those are also games. We like to think that games are very black and white, right? But what's really tricky and what is actually playing games is every time when you are not coming authentically to connect with someone else. And when you are not really authentic, when you are not brave enough, or when you don't have the courage to be vulnerable and actually show yourself to the other person, that's also a game. Like in Carrie's case, every time you let go, but you don't actually let go, you might think that you're not playing games, right? Because playing games is only the bad things. But think about it. Isn't that bad? Isn't that bad for the other person? At the end of the day, you are leading them on how everything is okay, even though it isn't. Something to think about, okay? Honestly, I do not know how people have even the tolerance to play games. Seriously. Oh, I'm gonna pretend I cannot open this jar so he will feel more masculine. Oh my God, I'm gonna flirt with this other guy so let's see if he's jealous, if he really likes me. What the F are we talking about here, Mary? If I can open the jar, I can open a freaking jar, okay? If I feel like we are not showing each other much affection, I can say, babe, I think we're losing each other a little bit more. Should we plan a date or something? I don't need to freaking flirt with another guy so I can see if he still wants me. Oh my God. Seriously, I do not know how people have the mental capacity to do this. But maybe I'm old. Despite everything, Carrie still does decide to go to therapist. She doesn't really know how does this help her, but there's a medicine that she did not expect. While she's waiting in the waiting room for her session, a cute guy walks out. There's a spark there. Carrie feels like something is pulling her towards him. So she sets up another session, to set the stage so she can accidentally be picked again. Also, so clear, right? Every time she feels that there is some kind of threat to how she sees herself, she needs to get that validation from a guy, a cute guy. I mean, at the end of the day, also, who gives a crap, right? It's a cute guy. They kind of flirt and he invites her for dinner.
Oh, and what about the plant?
Oh, I know. She always has it in a different place.
Maybe it's some sort of Dr. G psychological test.
As expected, let's bash the therapist and how ridiculous everything is. Wahahaha. We all know childish, immature, all the goodies. But at the same time, if you make fun of it, then it becomes less serious that you actually need to work on yourself. At one point, he even says that it was boring until she came.
You touched Dr. G's plant?
I've been going to her over a year. I got bored. And you came along.
Well, that's sweet.
No, it's true.
There was something about him. I felt like I could talk to him about anything.
Please tell me that you start laughing when you watch that scene. Like, I cracked up. There was something about him. I felt like I could talk to him about anything. This, what exactly? What did you talk about? Or is it special that you're special? That you brought some light into this guy's life? Because that's who you are, Carrie, aren't you? You're the one who guys just cannot stay away from. You're like what is the light? Oh my God, what is it? The animal that glitters in the night? Yeah, she's like that, and no one can keep their eyes away. I can keep my eyes away because if that thing starts flying towards me, we have a problem. I don't do bugs. Side note, I don't know how on purpose this is, but it's so amusing seeing Carrie get complimented and then immediately after that, she's impressed by him, right? Because in reality, that they might have been talking about so many things and blah, blah, blah. That's why she said that she can talk to him about anything. But what the show shows us is, no, she gets complimented and suddenly she's impressed by him.
Well, that's sweet.
No, it's true.
There was something about him.
Very amusing. And in the spirit of not playing games, Carrie decides to be honest.
I like you.
I like you too.
And you know what I say? Good for you. Express it. Say to the guy, hey, I like you. They have another date. But this time, she's taking him upstairs. According to Carrie, it was magical. But while she's lying there, she realizes she never really asked him why is he going to a therapist. Excuse me, what? Hold on. You met at a therapy session, yet you never talked with each other about, hey, what's your problem? Like, I know it's private, but at the end of the day, what else made you feel like you can talk to him about anything? If you couldn't even talk about why were you at the place that you met each other? Excuse me, what? But then again, why would they already have that talk before they did all that they did if that would mean that maybe she shouldn't be with this guy, right? Also, she doesn't really believe in therapy. And also, she's going to the therapy and there's nothing really wrong with her. So why would we need to talk about it? But right now, in this bed lying next to him, she asks him, why do you go to therapy?
I'm really fucked up about women. After I sleep with them, I completely lose interest. What about you? What's your problem?
I believe in therapy. This moment is called the breakthrough.
Oh my God, I feel bad. I feel sad, but that was so funny. She finally realizes that she does pick the wrong man. After this, Carrie gets into some more honorable mentions when it comes to the type of guys that she's picking and how she's going about it. The first one is her
Fuck buddy? What? It's a fuck buddy.
Oh, come on.
It is the in-between relationship guy. It's easy, it's fun, and they just get it on. No attachment, no expectation, and things are just good. But this time, she wonders, why did I never actually see him as potential real relationship?
Why had I been keeping him on the bench all these years? Did I really believe a relationship had to be difficult in order to work?
She takes the leap and invites him for a date. Now, there is a little bit of a confusion because he still didn't get that the date meant actual date and not just a hookup. But eventually they managed to go to a restaurant, and sooner or later, Carrie realizes that there's a reason why nothing developed with this guy, right? This whole experience, not being able to develop chemistry outside bed, even though they had such chemistry inside bed, kind of makes her wonder, is it possible that you have good chemistry in bed but not good chemistry outside? Honestly, what are we actually talking about? If we're talking just about chemistry, like we can just talk and everything and we can have good time together, I don't see how you can be very good in bed but not really have that like normal good time with one another outside of bed. But if we're talking about, can you have a relationship chemistry, or should you have a relationship chemistry if you have a sex No, are you freaking kidding me? Like, you can be good in bed because it requires much less, right? It's a certain type of chemistry. But when you actually want a relationship, it requires much more. And it's very easy not to be compatible with someone. I don't know. It does make me wonder, is Carrie trying to understand her own relationship with Big, right? Because they have this undenying chemistry. And it's almost like, oh, now I met a guy where, yes, the sex is also really good. But look, then we don't really click on the outside, on the surface. So it's almost kind of feeding into, the relationship that she had with Big, really like that was really everything. It does make me wonder, right? What is the actual question that Carrie is trying to understand? During this play out, we do see that Carrie finds it difficult to actually be happy without a man in her life. You see, when things don't go well with this guy, and because now they tried the relationship thing or the dating thing, now also the hookup thing kind of, had to end, she says that she's back to...
I knew it was the last time we'd ever see each other. And just like that, I was thrown right back into my old pattern. Greasy Chinese, sleeping till noon, and feeling restless.
In this stage, for her, there are two ways, right? Or she will feel restless and doesn't know what to do with herself, going through this breakup, being alone, or she will have a guy that will at least warm her bed at night, I guess. And I've talked about it before, but it almost feels like she is in a stage where you are almost desperate for having someone in your life or for having that new relationship. Because having a new relationship will give you the satisfaction or the reassurance that there's nothing wrong with you, right? It's almost like you're craving for someone to be with you and for you to have the relationship because you need to know that people do want to actually be with you. It's a phase. Then you realize that that's also not really the right way. And, you need to spend some time with yourself, go through shit and so on. Honestly, look, I do appreciate that Carrie is putting in the effort of having a relationship 100% or trying to meet guys and trying to develop something with them. There are two extremes. One extreme is that you just jump in new relationships immediately, which does kind of feel a little bit with Carrie, but she also kind of then ends it quickly. So, it's not that she totally goes into a relationship and doesn't know how to let it go. But there's also the other extreme when people get so closed off to new experiences that it can take years before they actually feel like they can again connect with someone else. And at the end of the day, it's not that serious. It really isn't. We should be a little bit more lighter when it comes to meeting people, having relationship, having experiences, and looking at it as this is life, right? I have a life, you have a life, we share it. I want to be with someone who I can share the most of my life, who I can share my experiences, if that's something that you want, while having the fear around it and taking it too serious also doesn't really help, okay? It doesn't. It's not that serious. It's just life. Oh, I have a feeling I need to say this to someone. This does not mean put up with shit. It's not like, oh, we have one life, so let me just stick it out. It's not that serious. No. I'm talking about the seriousness, about how serious it is if I get with someone and then it doesn't work out. That's why I never want to be with anyone else. Okay, let's chill. It's not that serious. You are in control. You have the power to let go when you need to let go, as long as you are true to yourself and you show up for yourself. So I do appreciate that from Carrie. It would be good, but then also it's a phase of a breakup, if she wouldn't then immediately attach that now she's restless again because there's no man in her life. Like I said, it does indicate this need for having another man in her life because that gives her the validation that she is good enough. In the spirit of getting out there, meeting guys, Carrie also starts dating a guy that is a writer, and she met him about a month ago. Now, the relationship seems to be going quite well. Like, they click, they are seemingly compatible, and he also introduces her to his family, which is something that she was struggling a lot to get from Mr. Big, right? He was dating her a year and didn't even mention Carrie to his mom, while this guy is bringing her into the family. Now, the family is perfect. They love Carrie. They know she's a columnist, and basically everything is peachy, right? Well,
It was inevitable this would happen. I just didn't know it would happen so quickly. I'll get a tissue.
it seems that this show needs to show, at least who's Carrie dating, that there always has to be one yes and one no. So she just ended with the guy, or her last experience was with someone who was good in bed, but then the outside of bad chemistry was not working. So now we need to do the flip, right? Now she meets a guy who is perfect outside, at least at the beginning, but then not so perfect in bed, right? Another problem. Now, you might think that Carrie was then immediately like, no, we don't, he's not good in bed, so this is not it, right? This is not the one. And you'd be surprised because Carrie is actually very willing to talk to him about it. But suddenly, this perfect guy with the perfect family becomes a little bit of a child, right?
Let's talk about it.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Well, I think we have to.
Why does everything have to be about sex? I am so sick of talking about sex. I've been talking about it since I was 2.
His mom was very open and they talked about sex from a young age. So today, despite him having problems in bed, he is like, I don't want to hear about it anymore. So, like I said, it's almost like the show needs to give us some kind of a, plot in between, where the only thing that I do see and appreciate is that Carrie recognizes that this is someone who she cannot really develop anything because he cannot even talk about things. It is interesting, though, that Mr. Big also couldn't really talk about things. So while Mr. Big was someone with whom she couldn't have a conversation about commitment, he would always say, let's talk about it later. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't have the time, blah, 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 right? And she let it go. This time, when the problem is sex and intimacy and the guy doesn't want to talk about it, she kind of also ends the relationship. So on one hand, at least from my perspective, I see it as a step forward. She recognizes that she cannot have a real conversation with him when there are problems. On the other hand, it is interesting to see what is the topic about. So when it comes to commitment, she could let it go for a long time until basically Big was the one who pushed her not to let it go anymore. But in this case, when the problem is intimacy, she cannot even let it go. Now, is this a step forward for Carrie? Understanding that you need to be able to talk to someone about serious thing if you want to have a relationship, or is it just based on the situation? What is the talk about? What do you think? It just kind of made me thought of that. Interesting. Side note, what is up with women in these shows always eating a freaking salad? Here's the thing. I'm a vegetarian, okay? I do not consider salad as real food. Seriously, having a plate of salad as my lunch, who the fuck thought of that? Like, look at these ladies. They're literally eating grass leaves from a freaking salad and call it lunch. I don't know. I always feel like when people order salad, it's the, oh, look, I'm healthy. Do not tell me you are full from those freaking leaves. When it comes to Carrie and where is she with her relationships, maybe the next guy will give us some new insights. So Carrie meets this guy, or she, bumps into him, and she gives him her number. Now, it's been 3 days and he hasn't called. Now, this is a little bit sus. What the F? It's been 3 days and he still hasn't called yet? For Carrie, the reason is simple.
Come on, how could he not call? It's been 3 days. He thinks I'm ugly.
Look, rejection hurts, okay? Rejection sucks. No one likes to be rejected. But also, let's chill. Let's calm down, sit down, take chocolate, relax. Look at it from what is actually happening. When someone is, in this case, when Carrie is not being called 3 days, right? 3 days passed and this guy hasn't called her. Don't you think that she is increasing her desire for him? Because if he hasn't called yet, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. So now suddenly, she wants him even more. I don't know. Think about when people use that, not calling back or not contacting for a couple of days. It is a way of playing games. And why does it work? It works because it puts you in a state that by the time that they will give you the attention, you're already craving that attention. You're already creating a story about everything that is wrong with you, why this person didn't contact, that when they do contact, now suddenly you feel like all of that was lie. I'm actually really good. When everything is again based on getting validation from the other person. Lovely. While she's walking down the street, she actually sees him. And she's like, you know what? I have 2 options. I can pretend that I didn't see him. I can turn around and, I will just be in this, I guess he doesn't like me and that's okay. Or I can just go up there and say hi. I can be confident. It's not a big deal if he didn't call me. So she goes up to him and he is acting a little bit like, girl, what you doing here, okay? Why are you just coming up to me like that? Obviously, Carrie feels a dum-dum. She's like, why the fuck did I even do that? It's obvious that he's not into me, so let me just walk away. But the story needs to continue. The guy runs after her and he's like, hey, Carrie, I'm so sorry. I didn't call you because I'm actually an addict. And I'm actually just about to go to an AA meeting. And that's one of the guys that also going. So, I didn't want to introduce or say anything because it's anonymous.
I'm an alcoholic.
And Carrie starts glowing again. It's not her. He's just in AA, okay? He's just in a program. He has an alcohol addiction, but it's not me. Side note, if someone is an addict and they're working on it, I really don't have any opinion on how healthy it is to start a relationship. Not like I have no idea. I think, yes, of course, everyone has a chance at, getting better, fixing their life or whatever. But I do have a little bit of a problem when this guy shares with Carrie that he is in a program and he is not supposed to date anyone for 12 months.
I've only been in the program 11 months, and my sponsor said I really shouldn't get involved with someone for a year.
But you know what? Looking at Carrie like that, fuck it. Let's do it.
Would you like to go out on a date sometime?
I can't think why not.
Now, Mary, why do you think Carrie is so into it? Despite being the special one, of course, and despite now getting the confirmation that there's nothing wrong with her. Heck, this guy is even willing to risk his addiction program to be with her. Well, if you end a relationship with a guy with your one true love or one big love because you weren't good enough for him to risk it all, for him to change, for him to commit, well, meeting someone who would does kind of feel good. Honestly, I genuinely believe that this is what is happening here. She doesn't care about this person, about this particular guy, that he's in a program, He has some restrictions, blah, blah, blah. She's more impressed and she's more focused on the fact that she can get the validation, that she can get the hit that she needs, that she can be with someone and is experiencing in front of her someone who is willing to risk it for her, that she is that special. I told you everyone has the selfish part that's behind the wheel. So they go on a date. But when he drops her off, after the date, there is no kiss at the end, which is a little bit weird. Carrie does not really expect that. I mean, Carrie is used to that. She has to basically stop guys from coming upstairs. So what's wrong with her? Why doesn't he kiss her? I don't know, Biz. Didn't he just tell you that he's in an AA program and he needs to take things slow? He has things that he needs to work on, like addiction. Why is it everything about you? Isn't it enough that he's even putting in the effort to try to develop something with someone? But okay, let's go to the second date. The same thing. Now this is suspicious. Third time, the same. She's confused. Side note, you know how before I mentioned that it feels like Carrie has a certain value attached to intimacy in general? This does make me feel that way again. Because the fact that this guy is in a recovery program and he expressed that to her and blah, 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 none of that matters because what she's focused on is, well, if you don't want to have sex with me or you're not ready to have sex with me, what's the point of all of this? And I don't know if you ever experienced feeling worthy when you have intimacy with someone. And if time passes when you don't have intimacy, suddenly you feel like there's something wrong with you. Now, first of all, I truly believe that intimacy is important for a relationship, but everyone has their own beliefs and expectations and blah, blah, blah. I do also recognize that we were conditioned in some way to attach a lot of meaning to sex and intimacy. I know I talked about this before, but I remember when I was a teenager, there was one particular friend who was convinced that unless you put out quickly in the relationship or in dating, the guy will lose interest in you, right? If we have sex, then I am worthy and I am good enough. But if we don't have sex, then there's something wrong with me and you're not really interested.
That was that. I'd hit my humiliation limit. And then I thought, how many cute, smart, sexy, single-smoking alcoholics are there left in the world? 5?
And, they end up in bed. It's actually the first time he has sex sober. So for him, this is like, hallelujah, the best thing that he ever had. And Carrie feels good about it. I mean, at the end of the day, who wouldn't?
Carrie, I love you.
There it was. The little phrase every girl is dying to hear a week and a half into a relationship. Wow.
Well, first of all, it's been only a week and a half and she got upset that they hadn't had sex yet. Okay, everyone has their preferences. I'm not going to go into it. Second of all, expressing he loves her. Well, again, maybe it's a show plot because they need to make it interesting and so on. But this is when Carrie finally realizes that, maybe this was not the best. He is the addictive type. Also, he keeps wanting having sex. Like, there is no stopping this guy. He just wants to get it on. And Carrie got her confirmation right now. So, guy, this is a little bit too much right now. You also love me? Okay, let's chill. It's so... I don't like it. To be honest, I really don't like it. She pushed this guy because she needed the validation, right? But now when there are consequences because of that, and now it's not really convenient for her, now she is like, oopsie, this guy is actually, has an addiction problem. Maybe I should be a little bit more careful. And look, here's the thing. I understand. Maybe she never had an experience. Maybe she didn't really know about it and blah, blah, blah. I get that. But if you're serious about, having healthy relationships, because I'm assuming that Carrie now wants to have someone who is a bit more committed and healthy than how Big was, It is a little bit interesting that then you're just jumping in these relationships, still focused on the validation that you need. Not really researching, well, what does it mean being in a program? Well, why do they need to not be with someone for at least a year? That I would assume someone who actually wants something healthy would look into it, and based on that would also understand how to continue a relationship. But for me right now, it does look like that Carrie, she just wants to be validated by having a relationship and commitment. I do think that relationship is really important to Carrie, like being with someone, because that means that you found that, special and the point of life and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, she doesn't really have clarity on what does it mean having a healthy relationship, and is more driven by the one, the soulmate, the undeniable chemistry and love. I feel like that's what's driving her more than anything else. Also, again, the same thing with the previous, characters that they introduced us to, or a guy is totally perfect, but he is afraid to commit, aka big. That's what they try to show the story as being. Or a guy is, perfect, but he's a mama's boy and he has intimacy problem. Or a guy is not really ready to have sex yet or be intimate, and then that's because he's an addict, and that's a problem. It's almost like chill people, there are normal guys out there and everything can click, okay? That is totally possible. But in Carrie's experience, it's almost like she meets these guys that are, there's always something wrong. But the guy that was the perfect one, what was wrong was just that he was afraid of commitment. All these other guys who are not afraid of commitment, they're just whack. They're not good in one way or the other. Now, if that's happening in real life, that you keep meeting guys, that something is wrong, blah, blah, blah. There are so many other nuances of what can be actually happening. But also it can be true, right? That there are just guys that something is missing. But don't let that feed into some kind of narrative of how someone who is not really good for you is actually good for you, or like Mr. Big, because that's the whole story. Just don't make it black and white. So this relationship also ends because it's all a little bit too much.
Patrick, what are you doing?
What? You bitch! I loved you! And you didn't love me!
But let's leave boys a little bit on the side. It's girls' trip. The girls decide to go to Hamptons for the summer. Yes, it's more of the 20-something girls that do that, but 30-something girls can have this experience maybe one last time together. Now, the whole vibe is in the 20s girls versus 30s girls dilemma, let's say. When they go to some kind of party in the Hamptons, organized by these 20-something people, they again feel like, oh my God, how could we do this when we were so young? At 20s, you wanted to tan and get burned on the beach, while when you're older, you're all about sunscreen, umbrellas, and I don't even have the patience anymore for all of this. Now, there is someone who is kind of attaching to Carrie. It is one of her fans. 20-something girl. Carrie is her idol, and she is basically obsessed with her column. I'm not gonna go deep into the relationship between the two of them because technically it's nothing crazy. The underline is that Carrie sees this person as this poor 20-something-year-old girl, right? You might think that we older women envy these young girls, but at the end of the day, they are just, they are in the battle with themselves. It's almost this sense of compassion for the young girls rather than jealousy or anything like that. So that's the whole point of this 20 versus 30-something girls, which will, it's important. That's why I'm saying it. Now we see them at a book launch party. And while she is standing there and her fan goes to pick up drinks, a guy approaches her, a doctor actually, and he asks her for her number.
Now it's just exceeded all my expectations.
Yeah, I know. Generally, it's just cheese and crackers. You never see an actual shrimp.
No, I meant you.
Oh.
Carrie is kind of intrigued, but not fully. But then again, he's persistent, he's cute, and, she gives him his number. The next day, while they're on the beach under their umbrellas, and looky, the new guy finds Carrie. Now, her friends acknowledge that he's cute, and also Carrie acknowledges that he's also a doctor. But she's not that into him. Honestly, I don't have any, particular reason why Carrie feels that way, because sometimes a guy can be cute, a guy can be fun, everything, but it just doesn't, it just doesn't click, or there's just something missing. On the other hand, if we play into the show and our protagonist, Carrie, there could be a problem of he's just too into me. You see, if we look at the pattern of how Carrie is meeting guys and who is she going after, who does she pick, it does look like that she is into guys that are maybe a little bit less interested. At least the majority of guys that she's interacting with, it almost feels like she does get attracted to the fact that someone is not totally available or totally into her. If a guy doesn't risk it all for me, if a guy doesn't go beyond himself to be with me, how special am I? Again, I'm not saying that that's totally what's happening, but it does seem like the show is trying to show us that. How she's not that into him despite everything being very good, or how she says it, good on paper. And if we want to play into it, we could say it's because this guy is just too much into her. He's too interested, and that's not actually what Carrie is after. In real life, it is totally possible that you meet people that, everything is kind of good, they're good on paper, but there's just not, you don't really click, there's not that attractiveness in that way. And it does not necessarily mean that the reason why you're not attracted to is because you have problems and you cannot recognize a healthy relationship. But in some cases, it is. And the attractive part that it's mixing is the part of not being available, because that draws you to someone, right? And from everything that we saw, I wouldn't be that surprised if Carrie falls into that category. When he asks her for another date, she says that she's not sure if, blah, blah, blah. But basically, long story short, there is a crab emergency.
So disgusting. Where's she going?
To the drugstore. Charlotte really is in her 20s. She's got crabs.
Oh my God.
And basically, she ends up going to his house in Hamptons and even spending the night there. Now, they don't do anything. They just sleep separately, and that's it. Honestly, I do not know what that was about, apart from, let's say, Carrie growing to someone who is a good on paper guy. On the other hand, it does also feel like that she just falls into the relationship. It's almost like, well, if this guy is interested in me and if I'm, he's good on paper and everything, let's just continue this, which again indicates that she's not really focused on what she needs and wants in a relationship. Because like I said, as much as it can be that she's not that interested because he is so interested in her, she's still not interested. So accept that and move on. Don't try to convince yourself in something that you're not feeling. There is another party, and it is the Yahoo party. Wait, is this appropriate? We see Carrie at this party and she is searching for him, for this new guy. And boy, does she find him.
And then everything I so firmly believed was promptly blown to pieces.
Mr. Big is standing across the room, smiling and talking to a gorgeous woman. A model-like woman, we could say. A younger woman. Carrie is shocked. He's here. Isn't he in Paris? She approaches him and she says, hi.
Is it you?
Hey, what are you doing here?
What am I doing here? What are you doing here?
He tells her that he actually came back from Paris this week, and he introduces Natasha. Now, an interesting side note, Natasha apparently heard a lot about Carrie. On the other hand, Carrie is a bit stunned and she's a bit confused. Like, who is she?
Well, I meant to call you. She's this girl that I met in Paris.
So you're just in from Paris for the weekend?
No, the Paris deal fell through. I planned on calling you.
Well, you can't plan everything. Life can be pretty random.
Here's the thing. I don't really see a problem with this. Look, here's the thing. Let's look at it objectively. They broke up, right? I honestly don't remember if Big said that he will call Carrie when he gets back. Did he say that? I need to check. Okay, no, he didn't say he's gonna call her when he comes from Paris. So basically, they broke up, right? He's back. Honestly, he doesn't have any obligation to call Carrie, so I do not understand why does she feel upset. The second thing, yes, it does suck seeing your ex with another woman, and apparently it's been 5 months since they broke up or since he went to Paris. But at the end of the day, I don't really get why Carrie is so confused. She's been dating other people, they broke up, and that's it. But am I missing something? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if I'm missing something. From my perspective, all in all, of course it sucks, but at the end of the day, it's normal. She quickly tells him that she's also here on a date, and for whatever reason, she emphasizes that it's a doctor. What was it? Bradley Moodley? Something? What was it? Mego. Bradley Migo. My memory. But she also adds that he's good on paper. Probably like Natasha.
Dr. Bradley Migo, he's good on paper, probably like Natasha. Good looking, sweet, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, Bis, she literally says that. Why are you just making an assumption? It is so weird. Feels like she's living in this fantasy of how Mr. Big and Carrie are actually the true love and meant to be together, but they just couldn't be together because he cannot commit, and that's the problem. So whoever they are with right now, it's just not the real thing.
So how old is she anyway?
I don't know. 26, 27.
Something like that.
And it does suck because Big was always dating model type girls, younger type girls, right? That's what we found out at the beginning of this show, the season 1, when they had this exchange about why do men date certain type of women and so on. It was implying that Big is the kind of person that dates models, whatever that means. But the show is trying to show us that means that they are just all about, having a good-looking younger woman so it can strike their ego, and how these type of women don't actually have a personality. But we went through all of that, how it's bullshit, but this is the narrative that the show is kind of giving us. So for Carrie, seeing Mr. Big after 5 months back from Paris with a gorgeous, young, model-looking like woman means one thing. He's back to living his life the same way he did before meeting Carrie. It's almost like nothing changed for him, right? He didn't change. He just went back to date whoever he wants to date and be happy. He went back to the younger, hot-looking women.
Well, I'll see you in the Hamptons or back in the city.
I promised to call when I get back into...
I just ran into Big. He's back from Paris. He has a new girlfriend. She's 26. Oh, God.
And she realized 20-something girls are just fabulous until you see one with the man who broke your heart.